All right, folks. As I say before, last couple of meetings, we're going to try to continue to do virtual and in place. And we've had a couple of technical difficulties, it seems like each time. Those of you in the audience may be at a disadvantage tonight because I don't know if we can project the presentations. People online will definitely see it. And you may see it, you may not see it. We'll find out shortly. So,
there's only 2 people online so far.
yeah, it's so welcome everybody to the Midtown CAC meeting. And we got a few little bits of business to take care of. The first of which we have minutes. We sent out the minutes. And I'd like anybody have any changes or revisions to the minutes that they'd like to introduce? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from April?
Accept the minutes from April.
And a second? Thank you. And thanks to Holly, by the way, who did the minutes for us. Well, thank you to both. It was welcomed. So by acclamation, I guess the minutes are accepted. We can move on from there. Okay, next order of business is Officer Winkle. And let me get your presentation up. We'll see how this works out.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Officer Winkle. I'm the North District Community Officer. Captain Tomczak, my boss, joining us in back as well. Our contact information is on the top part of the sheet that we handed out to you. If you have any concerns in the community, please drop me an email. I'd like to hear from you, even if you don't have concerns. Still like to hear from you. Just kind of a quick rundown. The Midtown CAC kind of goes into multiple districts, but mostly the North District, which I respond to. Raleigh Police Department is divided into 6 different districts: Northwest, North, Northeast, Southeast, Downtown, and Southwest. So each district is divided into 2 different zones. So if you kind of think of the North District, pretty much starting at Costco and 6 Forks up past 540, and any city property north of 540, those are going to be the areas that I'm responsible for. And Captain Tomczak sees that all those streets are deployed throughout those areas. So we really have 2 numbers that we look at. I tend to focus on calls for service. That kind of indicates on how busy officers are in your area. So if you take your slice of pie from 420 to 514, officers, we're fairly busy in here with a little over 1,500 calls for service. So they were, and that was just your little slice of the pie. So your officers are pretty busy. Leading those calls for service are going to be your traffic stops, security checks. So if we have an incident that pops off into this park, Captain Tomczak is very proactive to get his own to come and actually patrol and be visible to help deter crime. So they're getting out in your community. I'm going to say that's one of the highest in the areas that I give presentations for. So you have officers that are very active in this part of the world. Checks on welfare, commercial alarms, and motor vehicle crash. Please help us out. Get at least 3 seconds of space between you and the vehicle in front of you. That's minimal. That'll give you time to stop and avoid the rear end collisions or future turn signals. That will help us out. There's a lot of traffic that's not just people that reside here. You have a lot of shopping centers, you have a lot of entertainment facilities in here. So just be patient. And I'm sure that crash number will come down. On top of those calls for service, we do incident reports. So out of the 1,500 calls, we wrote 207 incident reports. And the top of that category is going to be miscellaneous. I'll give you an example. A miscellaneous report that I just wrote in the parking lot was transporting the gentleman from the North District to a detox center. So it was just one of those things where we just had to document who that person was, where his vehicle was, just in case a question popped up later. Assaults, those are typically known parties. So there's not a random act of violence being sent out to your residents. Larceny for motor vehicles, and I wish we could do something with that throughout the city. It's just a plague, and I wish we could do something about that. And then larcenies just in general. So we don't have my presentation up here.
You can see it, Matt, you can see it here.
But I think we have a challenge for y'all for the next 22 days. You can get out on your social media. You just put out 9 o'clock, check your logs. You can get that out there, and I didn't think of that up, so that's Clayton PD that I'm borrowing from. But if you guys can get that out there, and if they can just get one person to check it locks and lock it, that's one less part that they're gonna break into. People learn which neighborhoods are targeted and which neighborhoods are, they're gonna be fortunate enough to get stuff out of their vehicles. And they just would rather just touch handles, see which one's unlocked, and move on to the next part. So if I can get you guys for 22 days, sit out there and say 9 o'clock, check your lock, that'll be a huge help for us. One last topic that I want to talk about that's on the sheet and on the presentation, and also is in our budget proposal, is expanding our Acorn unit. It's addressing crisis, outreach, networking, resources, and services. We love our acronyms. That's a unit that the city developed about 2 years ago. It consists of a sergeant, detective, 3 officers, and 3 social workers. And we rely heavily on them for follow-up for subjects that are in mental health crisis, making sure that they're staying on top of their appointments, helping them tie into not only the crisis portion, but also the midterm and long-term goals for them to be successful. We use Acorns to help us out in the criminal justice system, so it's not a revolving door. One of the most effective ways that I use them comes with panhandlers. Every panhandler has a story, and I enjoy their stories. However, some of them are very tragic. And just finding out what their story is and relaying it to these Acorn units, they can help them out. Anywhere from, I lost my driver's license, the Acorn unit is able to present them with a letter stating their living situation. They can take that letter to the DMV, and the DMV will issue them a driver's license. One subject, John High, I'm very familiar with. He approached me while I was panhandling, said, "That's why I'm out here." Acorns was able to get him a driver's license. I haven't seen John High for 4 months. So he just needed his driver's license to get off the streets. So that specific line was in our budget proposal this year. So if that's a program and you'd like to have more information about, there is additional website that you can go to. You can email me. I'll be happy to share that with you. And if it's something that you think is right for our city, please let the city council know about that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Tomczak.
Great to see you all in person. I'm so sorry. Last meeting was here and I was not. I was probably sick for the first time in several years. So we don't use sick time to get you repair early. Holding on to it for 26 years. Something with it. A couple things I want to talk about. I was asked when I came in about security cameras in the parking lot here at Eastgate. Those are still in the budget, along with the gate, is my understanding. I'll get some follow-up from one of the assistant directors and his sort of good friend of mine and find out where we're headed with that and how long it's going to take to get those in place. So the good news is we haven't had any shots fired in the parking lot like we have in the past. So I'm less worried about it. The bad news is the problem's gone away. So I'm sure we could ask the problem away. I want to throw money at it. So
I'm sorry. Did you say again, what about the monitoring?
That Parks and Rec is gonna have to look into that. I'll look into it and get back.
Okay, well, what about the shot fire thing?
We haven't had any shots fired in here in the last month.
And you
We
got,
didn't have any in the month before.
and there's a system here for monitoring that?
No,
Oh,
neighbors call in.
got it.
Yeah, no, we don't have shot spotter. There's no
Okay.
intention on the Raleigh Police Department's.
You're going over to, I got you.
Okay, yeah, we don't have shot spotter like Durham does, so. I don't know that it would be deployed in an area up like this anymore. So if it was gonna be deployed, if we ever got something like that, it would be in an area where we are having, a lot more issues with that. The, also Winkle talked about kind of what we look at, just to give you an idea from my perspective as your district captain. There's two things that I really look at. One is violent crime and violent crime patterns. There's not any kind of violent crime patterns in Winkle. So the violent crime I'm talking about are aggravated assaults, which is assault with weapons, so pointing a firearm, shooting a firearm, stabbing somebody with a knife, waving a knife, baseball bat, stuff like that. The only two types that we've seen around here in any way, shape, or form are domestic related, as Officer Winkle said. This is people who have known each other. I'm very proud to say that of all the aggravated assaults in the last month that were domestic related, we don't have a history of going to that residence for calls for service. So when we go to a place and we see some radio, very loud in my ear right now, and we see patterns, we try to intervene. But the aggravated assault and pattern is not been at any repeat locations. The other type of aggravated assault we see in this district are road rage aggravated assaults. So someone makes someone mad and there's a back and forth on the road and someone pulls out a gun. So an example of one that I just read from last week was a guy driving on Wake Forest Road, got cut off by somebody. So we stopped at the red light and told that guy what he thought about him cutting him off. And then at the next red light, the other guy pulled out a gun. So we all get it. People drive poorly. I can promise you that if we see it, we'll take care of it. We're not going to be there for most of the poor driving. Just let it go. It's not worth it. There's some crazy people in the world. So someone cuts you off, that's okay. Give them some space. You don't want to be anywhere near them anyway. That's how my daughter, who, even though she's 19, is still learning how to drive. I don't know what it's about kids that don't want to get a license nowadays. But she is learning how to drive. And when someone drives crazy, I'm like, okay, slow down. Let them go by you. Let them get a couple roads up. So please do not engage people who have poor driving behavior. If they drive crazy, they are crazy. Let them go. The third thing that I wanted to talk about was we did see an uptick in the last couple of months, but not the last, fortunately, not the last couple of weeks of the thefts of Kias and Hyundais. So there has been and the it's just tough. Really, the way we try to motivate officers to do is to say, what if you lived here and you had to hear this all the time? But it's very hard. It's very, very different than I got a radar, I lock you in at 15 miles over the posted speed limit. The scientific evidence, there's no argument about it. The noise violations are subjective, like I said, in one sense of the word. They're objective in the sense that if you can apply a reasonable person's standard, it should be clear. But it's tough. So we're working on it. If you're probably hearing stuff in here from Wake Forest Road, it's probably, or if you live near the Beltline, you might be hearing the Beltline.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the Beltline, it sort of sounds like this, I mean, when you're on the Beltline, there's a lot of noise. You almost wonder if it'd be worth just kind of having someone sitting there at the recorder and pick, for an hour or so, and they have to drive, and you can probably pick out a lot of people that way.
That's not gonna help me have a recorder unless the officer will say it's unreasonable, no matter what the court says. There's no decibel level or anything like that. So we'll continue to enforce that. I will just say that from an officer standpoint, when I've had to enforce it, and I did in the Southwest District, when I was captain down there, I got a lot of assistance from officers who were concerned about getting in court and having to testify as to why the noise was on. So we've stopped them though. We had a bunch in Wakefield.
I charged 2 less.
Yeah, so I mean, there are officers that are comfortable doing that. It's a lot like drug work. When I started in the department, I did a lot of traffic work, not so much drug work. I had to find someone to teach me how to do drug work, and then I got
Yeah, we're back up. Thank you.
We'll certainly start reminding officers again about how to do that. It is important, it's critical, and if you have a repeat noise, so if there's someone in your neighborhood that's like a repeat offender, that's the guy, a couple of people got in Wakefield, get a description of the car, get a license plate, don't put yourself in jeopardy, give me a day, like day of the week, time of day, the car's always running through, and that's someone we can get. we're gonna be less effective getting someone felt.
Yeah, well, most of them are, I see they are speeding and cutting it out and, it's not just noise, but they're.
No, I agree.
I live in Buster's, yeah.
I live off of Glenwood Avenue. I hear it all day long. First, the name of the captain in charge of that area. It's not me. More questions? Happy to answer questions if you can. Yes, sir.
Related to, you brought up Acorn, in terms of notification. So like you said, for people that may be identified as needing that kind of service, is that something we should go to the non-emergency number with, or?
Just email me. If you see someone who's out there frequently, just email me or Officer Winkle, someone in the same location, and we can do a referral for Acorns and help them. Okay, thank you. No problem at all. If they're doing something that is illegal, aggressively panhandling in the street is illegal. Things like that. Those people in those little meetings are about to watch this little thing right here. That's illegal. Again, we have officers that are unwilling to take enforcement action sometimes because they're going to have to stop this. But we'll get a hold of that and get it done if we can. Email is the best way for folks. If you know someone's camping out in the area, wants to check on them, we'll go do that. So we are all about keeping the campsites out of the city of Raleigh, but we do that by getting those people the resources they need, giving them opportunity to clean up their illegal camping location, and then if they refuse to, then we're going to enforce. So I tell cops all the time, it's the greatest job in the world. The rookies, you be as nice as you can in the morning. In some cases, then by the end of the day, you're being mean. You got the carrot, you got the stick. And unfortunately, people ask us to do that. Well, that's what we get paid for. Other questions? Happy to take questions. Yes, ma'am.
Can you go over in terms of panhandling, what is allowed versus and what's not? So you're saying this meeting is not allowed, but is it that no panhandling at all is illegal, or what?
So in the city of Raleigh, you can panhandle on private property if you have permission. And if you're panhandling on private property and no one tells you to leave, it's kind of a de facto permission. So we would ask private property owners to step up, and I mean, like shopping center owners, to step up and tell people they don't want people panhandling on their property, don't do it, and they can be charged for trespass. But it's not illegal to panhandle there, it would be more trespassing charge. It is illegal to panhandle from vehicles on a road if it causes any kind of disruption in traffic, and by any kind of disruption, I mean if someone has to move so much as an inch because they're afraid they're going to hit someone on the road, that's enough for us to enforce a violation of panhandling there. Aggressive panhandling is against the law in Raleigh, which means blocking a sidewalk or panhandling too close to an ATM or just being aggressive in nature with tone. About the only place you can legitimately panhandle is on a sidewalk. And you have to have a permit. So permits available for free from the police department. You can go to the front desk, any front desk, and we'll issue a permit to someone. So, and we get it. I mean, I'm all for it. I know that a lot of people are down on their luck. Like Officer Winkle said, we try to give them help that we need. The ones I have no patience for are the ones that you have been warned, and you have been warned, and we write you a ticket, you should go to the court, and I want to issue your arrest. We arrest you, and you're out in a couple of days doing the same thing again. So I'll do it, we've had panhandlers knock on car windows, that's unacceptable. So we're gonna stop the aggressive panhandling where we can. Everyone has a right to drive around in peace and quiet. Yes, we're not going to do those things like that. Ballpark off the top of my head, that's the best. So there are some, go to Raleigh City Code, the website of Raleigh City Code. Panhandling, there's a couple of other general statutes that are applicable to us involved in impeding flow of traffic. And impeding just means traffic can't move in a normal way. So I get it. I can tell you that I have tried to help many panhandlers in my life. And probably about 5% of them never took me up on my help. So I've stuck in my head before. So I appreciate it. I'm sorry you're down your luck, but the law's the law, rules the rules. We have to follow it so everyone else. I'm sorry, I'm not need to like I'm hard about this stuff. I've been doing this for 26 years, and there are a couple of things that I believe don't work. One of them is verbal warnings, and one of them is giving people more than about 3 chances. So at that point, we're done. If you feel like, wow, I want to live in another area where Captain's not so mean. I'm sorry. I'm not mean. I promise you, I need to shirt off my back. But that, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me. Any other questions? I have an answer if I can.
I think we're good.
Oh, okay. All right. If you got anything at all, any questions, then you've got our email addresses. Email is the best way, especially for like a recurring issue with a camp or a homeless person that's out there. We'll get them to help. we'll offer them help. Like I said, I'm all for it. I think the program is fantastic. I think the frustrating thing about it is the people who are just, they're like, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I want to sit here in the road and beg. And my answer is, you can't sit in the road and beg, like you're gonna have to arrest me. Okay, people like that in the world, no problem. Yes, sir.
Would it help to have pictures? Or you've got, other certain places?
Yeah, so we'll have to go out and absorb them ourselves. But if you have someone who's constantly, so falls and Sandy Forks used to be a constant problem. Six Forks in the belt line, we've got the one guy out of there. Now we got another guy hanging out there. But yeah, if you just email me with the location and either off the Winkle or me, I don't mind doing it. I stopped 2 cars today. I'm still a cop. 14 months we got left. I'll be stopping cars and handling home people. Just give me a location and just quickly, if you want to take a picture, that's cool. It will help. It'll help me be like, oh, this is exactly what it looks like. We just can't afford it on that. We'll have to see it ourselves. But yeah, absolutely. Take a picture, email to us, and we'll get it taken care of. Love to. I want people to feel safe and not be harassed. That's at the end of the day. So we all pay enough in taxes where we shouldn't have to put up with harassment. There's people down there, like, we'll help them and give them an opportunity to get help. Otherwise, after that, that's on them.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be here next month. I will have answers about the gates and the cameras, and I'll have an answer about Hardmont Road and see what City of Raleigh DOT has to say about that. So
If you go out that way, you'll see the smashed barrels and sign down.
they just convinced me I don't want to go out there.
Drive carefully if you do.
Well, I joke with people all the time. People in traffic vest with a whistle, people will hit a cop. And I'm like, just put orange cones, because most of the time, the orange cones, people are terrified of hit. They'll run over a cop, don't run over a cop. So I'll look at that stuff. If anything else comes up for the next meeting, please just email me or Officer Winkler. We're happy to help. We're here to serve you. We want to deliver you the service that you expect. You have another question? Go ahead.
So, where do you take people to detox?
We don't take people for detox. Oh, you mean where Matt took somebody?
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about the specifics of it because that's what we have individual, but it just depends on the situation. We don't have like a month tank or anything in Raleigh. So there's a couple of mental health facilities we can take people to.
Like, we've got issues in place like that. They said sometimes the police bring people in there.
Several places we can take people depending on the situation.
Some of them are really serving the community very well. I think taking these people as opposed to putting them in the slammer, which is,
We don't do that.
no.
We do not do that. So if we have someone that we encounter, let's say that they are breaking a begging law, but it's through the issue here is alcoholism or something like that, we will write them a ticket instead of taking them to jail and offer them transport to a facility. You know, we really are nice people. We are. It's a fine line to walk sometimes, and no matter what choice you take, it seems like someone's always mad at you. So, and anyway, we saw goodies for the police station last week. Thank you very, very much. And those who did, same time next year. Love sweets. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Okay, for those of you in the audience, you wouldn't know, but Wi-Fi went down for a while, so we lost our online participation for a while. And I guess those of you that are online or listening, by now you've recognized that we lost our Wi-Fi, but we are back. So hopefully you didn't miss too much.
Larry, would it help if we use the mic and the camera as opposed there, then we could maybe get better audio to the people that are on Zoom. I don't know. You want to mute yourself and I'll unmute.
We can try that.
I muted. I'm muted.
We're getting feedback that way.
Yeah, that's not.
Like where we were. See if we're still getting something coming out of that feedback on that speaker. There's levels, so here's the let's just go back the way you had it.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yeah, but
Technical problems. Okay. Next thing on our agenda is a little bit more business. As many of you may know, we're going to have elections in June. We are fortunate that I'm willing to do it for another year. I'm terrible. Lubin Privat is willing to do it for another year. And Shane's way back in the corner there, Shane Collins is also willing to do it for the year. But we do have an opening for a secretary. This is Thad O'Brien, our remaining member of our nominating committee.
The last of three.
He's a speaker if you want that. You can actually,
This one's here.
that's actually live. Yeah, he,
Okay, I was gonna go with the speaker for the policeman one. Yes, for the election in June, we are looking for a third vice chair, which is also the secretary position. And then other positions that are voluntary, that don't have to be filled necessarily, are the assistant vice chair, backup secretary, the treasurer, which is not an elected position, and the media specialist, Facebook post. So anyone who wants to fill one of those positions can email myself or Larry, or if you want to nominate anyone now, you may do so. And then the elections will be in June at the next meeting, correct?
absolutely. Nope. Don't see any nominations from the floor. We definitely need a secretary. Will Udusky was our secretary, and he's unfortunately got work commitments, so he hasn't been able to do it. Holly and Matt have been doing a great job of doing the minutes for me. I really appreciate it. But I don't want to overburden them at the same time. And as far as our Facebook page, it's the same thing. The lady, Christina Cianelli, was doing it for us for years. And she has also had too many commitments to continue to do it. So we're looking for both of those opportunities. And looking to the future, I think we're going to need a treasurer, depending on how the funding works out for CACs. I don't have much hope that we're going to get funding from the city, at least in the short term. So it's time for us to start looking out for ourselves. And I think we'll start that by looking for a treasurer and then go for opportunities to find sponsorships and just branch out a little bit. That'll probably help us with the equipment that we're struggling to survive with. Thanks to Ted, by the way, who has been providing the equipment. So with that, elections are open for another month. We'll have elections next month.
Email, it's on the.
Yep. It was in the notice I sent out to everybody with Thad's address, but I will resend it for everybody so that you all have Thad's and myself.
It'll be in the minutes as well.
Yes, it will be in the minutes.
Thank
you.
Okay, we have a special audience tonight. We have Christina Jones, who's here in person. We have Megan Patton online. And Megan, if you'd like, you can unmute yourself at any point. And we have Mary Black also online with us. That's our District A council person. And Megan, I think you are B, yeah.
B.
Yeah, and Christina is E. She actually has half of Midtown. She has the lower portion below the belt line. And Mary has above the belt line. Be nice if we could do something about that, but otherwise. So I'd like to give an opportunity for the counselors to have their say. I think we have a little time in the agenda. Christina?
You want to start with Mary since she's your.
Yeah, you're here in person.
All right.
We think this works.
I'm gonna see, Mary and Megan, can you hear me okay?
Yep, you got it.
So little, okay. Good evening, thank you guys so much for having me. I did just learn as well with that district shift last year that now I have some of you guys at Midtown, so yay, I'm super excited. Council's going great. We're going through this budget, which just for fun here, I brought as a visual. So this is what our budget is, 400 pages. It's 400 pages, and right now we're all going through and tabbing our questions and going through and making sure that we understand it. So it's taking a little bit of time. It's definitely a little extra work on our side to read through this, but it's work that we signed up and we're really excited to do. It's my first, I can't speak for everyone, but it's my first budget, so I'm learning and everyone's been so great at answering questions. I know the city manager has answered a lot of my questions, but my goal is to make sure that those are forward facing so that you guys know what I'm asking. And I hope that if you have any questions, please send them to us. We have city council members at raleighNC.gov is our email address. Please send them our way so that we're not doing this blind. You know, we definitely want to make sure all of your questions are captured. I've had a great time on council so far. It's about 7 months in, and still feels like drinking from a fire hose. Definitely still feels like that. But I'm having a blast. So thank you guys so much, and I'll pass it on to the other counselors that day.
Mary? Mary, would you like to unmute yourself? Mary.
Hi y'all. I missed Christina's introduction. I'm sorry. I'm like on the move. I was trying to make it. I'm running a little bit late. Hi, my name is Mary Black. I'm the District 8 counselor. Larry told me like about this meeting, and I've been trying to make it to the meetings that we've had over the last few months. It's just been like, oh, so busy. But I know there's some really important topics that are coming up today. And I just wanted to be here to like hear from you guys and offer some insight where my insight may be helpful, and to just say hi. And you'll probably see me like the next 30 minutes or so if I can make it over there. I'm so sorry, I'm not there right now, but so great to talk to everyone from the computer.
Thanks, Mary. Megan?
Yeah, hey y'all. I hope the sound's coming through. Oh, I see head nods. Confirmed. Can hear the sound. Great. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see you all. Like Christina said, or Councilmember Jones said, it's budget season. So I've got my budget book out on my side table, and I have it. I sectioned it off, challenged myself to read a tab every day, and I've got I think I should own stock in Post-it notes at this point because I'm using a lot of them to note all my questions. But to add to what Councilmember Jones said, a budget should be a reflection of the city's values. And while we campaigned hard on listening to you all, and so we feel like we understand your values, we certainly welcome you to tell us what those are again and make sure that we have a budget that reflects those values. So please do email us. Currently to just give a little bit of a view of kind of how it came to pass and where we kind of are in the process. So each department gives a proposed budget, right? They tell their assistant city manager what they want in next year's budget. So it's kind of like making a Christmas list. They make their Christmas list, then it goes to the assistant city managers and the city manager, and they ultimately decide what makes it into the proposed budget. So they've presented us their proposed budget, and then we dive in and we say, well, why is this in here? Why is that in there? And so the current proposed budget has only the 4-cent property tax increase that was voted on by the voters. They approved Parks bond that was on the ballot in November of 22. 22, yeah. Lost track of my years there. Yeah, so the 4-cent property tax increase. There is no other property tax increase that has been presented in the current vision of the budget. You might see there, I know there was a News and Observer article that talked about the size of the pot growing. And so I just want to distinguish that those are different, right? So only the voters approved property tax increases is the only property tax increase that's presented there, but you might see mention that the actual pot is larger. As there are more people living in Raleigh, there's more people paying into property taxes. And so you might see mention that the pot itself is larger. So yeah, so then we're going to really get under the hood and make sure that the council is in line with everything that's been proposed to us. And then before June 30th, we will approve a balanced budget so that we can continue into the new fiscal year. Yeah, and you might not know this, but the city has to pass a balanced budget. Only the federal government is allowed to pass a budget that operates at a deficit, but we are not. So we will pass a balanced budget by June 30th. That's all I got for you.
Thanks, Megan. For those of you in the audience and those of you online, We have asked for somebody from the budget group to present to us over the last 2 months. And hopefully they should be completed with their budget tasks so that maybe by the end of June, we will have somebody here from the city budget group to speak to us about the budget. Still, that invitation is out there and hopefully we'll get it done. If not, we'll be in the fall like everybody else. Okay. Thank you, Megan, and Mary, I guess, is on her way, and Christina is here. So we've got a nice representation from council and it is appreciated. All right, I think we're up to the main event, as they say. And that's the possible rezoning of the St. Mark's property and the neighborhood around it. And from what I understand, there are now a lot of people here for that. Can you raise your hand again? Are we good to go? Since I can't unfortunately show you the presentations, maybe Bynum, do you want to? We're very fortunate tonight. We have Bynum Walter with us. She is the planning employee of the year. Well deserved, I will say. Yeah. And we also have Sarah Shaughnessy. Correct?
She'll be the planning employee next year. Is it just a tech issue or do we just need a projector?
Oh, well, we could have used a projector.
I didn't realize y'all needed one. We have one that y'all
Well. Yeah, but I got everything on here, so it won't do us much good. It won't do us much good because I got everything loaded on here. And oh, we can? Oh, Ted says we can.
Do you want to take any questions while I'm here?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you guys have any questions? Yes.
Yes, the neighborhood that we hang around, or we're just trying to get help at Cooper's Pond to get the geese and the food and to get it modernized a little bit. And we understand there's an engineering study going on now to make sure the dam is safe. So that's the water, the storm water. But the modernize and clean up the pond is Parks and Rec, and I sent a request probably to you, and it got bumped to the head of Parks and Rec. He said he was going to have the budget to see if they had money to do it. And I've heard nothing. So
I can help you a little bit with that.
if somebody can help, so how can we move this along to find out what is going on? That's all we want to know. And
Right.
we would like to have it get the lake clean so it doesn't stink into something. And it looks a little familiar.
Yeah, you're not the only one that's sending emails to the city, particularly about the status of the dam. The dam was budgeted for repair or replacement in, I think, 2025, 26. It got bumped out further to 27, 28. I have to double check that. If you send me an email, I'll give you all the latest information about the dam. And the engineering study has been completed, but we don't know the result of the engineering study. And I'm trying to remember the individual that's responsible for that, but I'll put that in the email I send out.
Rico, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, send it back to me because I don't think that's the person, but we'll get on the same wavelength. Yeah, so, yeah, so I would suggest that everybody look at the budget that's being proposed, not all the wording in the budget, but look at the capital investment program. You want to mute yours, I think, or I can mute mine.
But with this budget that you got, ma'am, are you able to look in there? Could you look and see if the, since you're representing us, anything about the Cooper's Pond future budgeting? Or because I guess your budget would say something for 3 years out.
Yes,
This year, the
yes,
next two,
next 5.
or
at least.
5, so-
Yeah, there's a capital improvement plan that gives us that 5-year projection, but I'm not sure. That would-
It'll be listed. You can look yourself. It's listed as the Eastgate Dam project.
Right,
I'm gonna take a note on it though, because I don't know the answer to that, so I'm gonna take a note.
and make sure you see me, I got an address for you.
Okay.
Eastgate, what was it called? I'm sorry.
Eastgate Dam.
Eastgate Dam.
And it's not just repairing the dam or making sure it doesn't fall apart, which
Right,
is
right,
a
right.
good thing for them, but how is the modernization, because they've got our recommendations.
And then I'll get your email so that I can get you, so I can make sure it gets back to you. Once I get other questions, I will come to you. I will be right there. Any other questions, maybe about the budget, about city council, this I can help answer. I did want to make one more quick point. As I've been talking to residents, they don't print out these budgets. It's easier for me to look at with Post-its. They don't print them out, they are online. What I have requested is that every community center have one printed out budget so that people can come and look at it. You wouldn't be able to check it out, but it would be something that you could flip through and touch. So I emailed that on Friday, and so I'll check back tomorrow to make sure that it's happening. You have a physical copy that you are able to and accessible to see. In the library, where you could make a Xerox, just as long as you right? I didn't ask that, but I will add that. And then.
Yeah, it's like.
Question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but in budget, is there, I know there was talk of increasing patrols on greenways, is that at all a priority this year, in this budget year?
There is an increase, that's all this the police division here just here, and so there has been a requested increase into that. Specific that if it's going to the greenway, I can find out that I'm not trying to look at the officer and.
Last for 3.5 years.
That I will bring up. That I don't have to. Yes, sir.
Nobody's tracking it, you have good Facebook updates as well as your emails out, so they're really helpful, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And I know that other councils, we definitely try, if you want to get onto my email list and I'm District E, you can just ChristinaForRaleigh.com and sign up for the newsletter there. I have monthly meetings.
And you are.
And my district
Sex.
technically goes from down 5 all the way up.
IE at gmail.com.
We've all
Help on.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Almost near, like an order. And then I'll start coming back down. This will be my 8th meeting this month, but if you guys have anything you want, a neighborhood meeting that you want me to come to, please never hesitate to reach out to Magnolia Glen, just to have an assisted living, and we had 55 people there. So that was pretty cool, and I'm never up against that. So please let me know wherever you need to be. Anything else? I don't want to, are you guys ready?
I should point out to everybody, we have 3 counselors that are meeting tonight. That's more than we had all of last year.
Are you sure? That is.
I don't know if it's
I think I
messing
am.
things up. But I also have a newsletter. This is Megan Patton from the computer. I also have an email newsletter that you can sign up for. So I'm pattonforraleigh.com for the website and pattonforraleigh.com on all socials. And so you can follow my stuff there too.
Yeah.
Have you got it plugged in and ready to go?
It's all set to go.
Sweet.
Now, wait a
Maybe
minute here.
share.
Why does it say Zoom?
I think because Cindy's had picked you up. I'm gonna start talking about Larry troubleshooting.
Ted, how come it says Zoom up there?
My name is Bynum Walter. I work in the planning department. I've been working for the city for about 10 years. I grew up here. The last time I was here, I ended up on the sidebar. I think Lubin was you and Russ Stevenson in the coat closet. It was an interesting night. Hoping for no sidebars and coat closets tonight. I'm here because there have been a lot of questions in this area about what St. Mark's Church is up to on their property. And I have very limited information about that. They own about 4.8 acres on 6 Forks Road that backs up to Perry. Just north of, is that Northbrook? Right. They met with the city twice already this year. The first time to talk about the potential for rezoning. And the way that they described their project is that it would continue to include the church. They were talking about the possibility of townhomes, some downtown retail, and upper floor residential. That was what they told us. They also brought a site plan to other staff in the planning department to evaluate. We offer a free service where folks who are contemplating projects can come and bring their plans and get some feedback about how feasible it is and what are the likely sticking points or hurdles or whatever. The project, as they described it to staff, definitely requires rezoning, but they have not yet filed a rezoning application. So, that's why I don't have a lot of information about what they're planning to do. They haven't really committed to anything. They clearly are exploring something, but their plans are not really clear at this point. Larry, you and I had correspondence from the pastor who indicated, are you the pastor? Sweet, I'm super glad that you're here. What do you want to say? I would really love to hear from you. So we did hear from the pastor. I'm glad that you're here tonight. That's wonderful. I'm happy to talk with you about the rezoning process and how that works. I'll go ahead and say, before the church could file a rezoning, they would need to hold what's called a first neighborhood meeting. They have to hold that before they file. That would, mailed notice for that would go out to all neighbors within 500 feet. Given the nature of the rezoning, once they filed, I anticipate there would be a second neighborhood meeting, which would include a mailed notice of 1,000 feet. Rezoning would also include planning commission review, which would include mailed notice. So those two neighborhood meetings, I can imagine might happen in a room like this, and it would be an opportunity for the church and whoever their development partners are to talk about what they're planning to do, why they're rezoning, and hear input from the community about what they are up to. But we're not there yet. We're just not there yet. I don't have any, there's nothing for review on my desk. And I don't think the church is there yet in their process either. So what questions are there questions you want to ask me? Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Well, I mean, my main question is, so you have these pre-application conferences, right? I think the developer asked for 6 to 8
Or 12,
or 12.
yeah.
In your own 2030 plan,
Mhm.
it's recommended for 3 stories, but yet the city comes back and says go 12. That's what I don't.
Right, so I appreciate that those notes are, that you read those notes that way. I hear that you interpret them that way. I understand that. That's not what staff meant when we wrote those words. What we try to do when we meet, well,
But these are the words. I mean, I will see.
that's great.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying. So I'm not doing this with me.
Yeah, so when an applicant comes to us, one of the things that it's our job to do is help them understand what district would allow them to do what they want to do. That's not us saying that's the right district to ask for. We just have to help them understand if that's what they want, if that's what they want to ask for, they can ask the council for anything.
Yeah.
We have to help them understand what they can ask for.
But, okay.
If they want, right, if they want to do that, that's the recommended district for them to build what they want to build.
If they want to build, okay, I get it. So if
Okay.
they recommend, so if they want to go that big, staff recommends the next to see like 7 stories.
That's right. That's right. That's not what policy support is.
Yeah.
And that's your point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
seems like if you read this without context, I appreciate you coming because I think
Yeah.
that helps clear it up. If you read this without context, it's like, oh yeah, just build what you want, right? And,
Yeah.
we look at the plan that's clear, it's 3 stories.
Yes.
And in fairness to Pastor Lewin, they have to make a decision,
Mhm.
right? And if, in order for it to work out for them to build the church and sell the land, they probably need, I'm assuming, I don't know, that's either, right? I'm assuming they need to go big to make the project
Yeah.
financially viable, right? So, I don't know, some of these pre-application meetings are kind of, just, again, as a citizen, not knowing how the department works, it looks like it sets a false expectation.
And can I add really quickly just to that, is that if, let's say, they do go for the 12 stories, if that's what that is submitted, staff comes back and says it's inconsistent with this policies inconsistent. So we are told whether it goes first with the planning commission and then comes to us, we are all told that it's inconsistent with whichever policy, and then that's what's laid in front of us. So it's not that that's ever hidden. We do talk about that.
Okay,
Are you Jason by chance?
Yeah.
Excellent.
no, appreciate that detail, because that helps. And I don't know, like you said, I mean, to your point, you read it, that's how it is. Yeah.
So, when I read that, I've read probably 1,000 of those. And so I know I understand what was going on in the room.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah,
Yeah.
it's your job. We don't know,
Yeah.
we don't know what you did. Okay, thank you.
Do you have more questions?
No, is it?
Okay, yes, sir.
Would this type of development be required to have a traffic improvement analysis be done by a third party? Because it wasn't, I've heard that some projects in North Hills haven't been required, or, so I didn't know if this would trigger that type of requirement.
I think it's hard to know right now because I don't know what I don't actually even know if they're gonna ask. So we have hundreds of pre-apps every year. A lot of them don't ever file a reason request. Right? So I don't know what they're gonna ask for without knowing what they're gonna ask for. I don't know if they'll need a study. I can talk to you about the metrics for when we require a study, which is when we expect, based on current entitlement and the, potential for development, not the existing development, but the potential for development on the site currently, and how many cars that could generate, how much trips that could generate compared to what they're asking for and how many trips that could generate. And if there's a big delta, typically, we would ask for a study, or as an alternative, an applicant might condition their case to limit their entitlement to ensure that big delta is smaller, and then they come do this stuff. And then there's a third model. I see you back there, Sean, a third model in more urban areas that we're starting to use, where instead of looking at number of trips, we look at vehicle miles traveled. So not necessarily how many trips were made, but how long those trips are and how much driving around on the network that makes. Because we know that in more urban places, the trips are shorter, and also there are often fewer car trips because people are walking or biking shorter distances and more, right? So if you know that some of those trips are shorter, you can expect that more of them would be captured, not by car. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bynum. Go ahead, Shane. Go ahead.
I know what kind in gray, in
Yeah.
but for the people in this room, we've all seen how we do about.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps getting bigger and higher and higher and bigger. And it started out small. And now we've got at least two, maybe probably four properties being bought by a group or a couple of groups. And so it's looking like somebody's buying property, and if they keep buying property, then that's going to reduce the values of the residential homes around there if they leave those properties vacant.
I need some more information. I don't actually understand what you're saying. Can you give me some more information about, I don't understand, what are you saying about people buying property? What is that?
An individual has bought the pastorage,
Parsonage.
parsonage. And so, yes, their son is living there now. And no, expected.
Well, I think you may be running this business out of there and it's not zoned for business, but, the developer that's planning on doing potentially the development, he bought the parsonage from the church years ago. And then since then, at the beginning of this year, he bought the lady's house that lives across the street from the parsonage, which is directly across from me. So he started gathering properties in this one particular area. And we don't know what's really done because
The uncertainty is awful. Isn't it?
yes, it is, especially when you look out your window and you're staring at it.
Yeah.
I
Bynum?
have a follow-up question with that.
Go
So,
ahead.
I mean, if the developer wanted to develop an existing property, they could develop that within the zoning laws.
Right.
without any-
So,
Right.
yeah, which is,
So they potentially townhomes or
yeah,
low density apartments.
right.
potentially,
So this is the, church property on the west side of Six Forks, and then, the meeting that we had with them included just these two parcels. Well, this used to be one parcel that's been subdivided into two,
Gotcha.
right? And the current zoning here is R4, which allows duplex, single families, and townhomes. Yeah. 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 So there's, certainly, and that's probably smaller than a quarter acre lot functionally. So.
What's the word?
The R4 zoning historically is about a quarter acre lot. With the other building types that are allowed to attach, attach a duplex or the, we'll call it a duplex townhouse. Probably you could get more than 40 units in the building. And then accessory dwelling is also allowed, so fair amount of residential, that's 5 acres. A fair amount of residential entitlement there. Possible. Have you got online questions? Okay. We got a question in the back, and are you trying to ask a question too?
Yeah, it wasn't
Can
your,
we take this gentleman in the back? He never emails me like you do. It's a mutual.
So there's kind of this idea that the wider the street, the higher you build the building. Right, because it kind of matches the like portions of the street, like a wider street fits a wider building, like visually.
That is a kind of a planning concept, that's not how any of the policy in Raleigh is set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you are aware of that.
Yes, I'm aware of that
And
concept.
then the city policy doesn't.
Our policy is not, our land use policy is not, height is not really tied to street. Designation, more, so we have this map, we call it urban form map, that sets out, growth centers, designates, some mixed use centers. Captures our bus rapid transit corridors, transit emphasis corridors, which are 15-minute service or better. The downtown places where we expect and possibilities of pushing growth towards those areas. Right? This on the urban form map.
The people that are on Zoom did not know what the question was, did not hear that.
So
Articulate the question.
Sure. So, the gentleman in the back asked a question about how building height relates to street width. And in Raleigh, our land use policy does not really tie building height to street width, although that is a pretty classical planning concept, design
Yeah, I
concept.
mean, just like some of the other buildings near there.
Right,
Are like 5, 6 floors.
right,
Which
Right.
kind of matches the, you know, the width. of the road.
yeah. So, can folks hear me when I stand over there?
yes.
Okay. This particular site is in the frequent transit area, and at the, pretty close to the intersection of 2 transit emphasis corridors, so again, anticipated 15-minute service or better. But maybe you were driving it.
Well, I was
That
like,
time.
there, I was a little confused, like you're talking about R4, like that doesn't make. Like you have other office buildings there, but it's not obvious why it's still in R4.
Yeah. So what the future land use map says here, which is part of our vision for height in the city, is, the church and the church to the north of it. I think there's another church to the north of that, right? Yeah, all those churches are designated on future land use map as institutional. Which is a pretty common designation on future land use map where you have more than 2 acres or so of institutional use. Churches, we consider churches institutional. Like a single church alone might not get designated that way, but as we've just established, it's a little bit of a district. And the height guidance for institutional is not as affirmative as it is for office and residential mixed use, which is what's across on the east side and south of here.
I missed that at the start. Is this land going to be used by the church for church mission, or are they selling property to raise money for someone else to do it?
We got all the planning questions wrapped up, because I do think the pastor.
I got one question for you.
Okay.
Let's make the assumption that within the next couple of months, the church squares away their arrangements with the developer. Let's say by September. Can you give everybody a concept of time that they would make applications, say in September? By the time they would then get to neighborhood meetings, it would then get to the planning commission, and then ultimately to the council.
Okay, so they'd have to have a meeting before they filed in September. After they filed, they'd have to wait at least 30 days before they could have their second meeting, because we do staff review. And then the code just says there has to be 30 days between meetings, so they can't be all like rush doing their meetings 2 nights in a row, whatever. And then shortly thereafter, probably, provided they had all their things in order, before they could have that second meeting, they'd have staff review. If they had to do a traffic study, that would happen. That can take, that's a kind of a variable in terms of how long a process might take. It really depends on how big a hurry they're in, how backlogged the person they hire to do it is. It can take 6 weeks, it can take 3 months. That one's a little bit hard to predict. Once they get through that, they go to planning commission for review. Planning commission has at least 60 days. They can take as long as 60 days to review. They can ask for longer from council. Pointing at you because you're in the room, you're not the entirety of the council. I don't need to lay that on you, sorry. They could go to, they would spend some time in planning commission, and then they would go to council for public hearing. Our average right now in Raleigh is that rezoning takes about 200 days to nuts, like from filing to council action. And there are a lot of different variables in there. Sometimes council wants to talk about it more than once. Sometimes planning commission wants to talk about it more than once. Sometimes neighbors want to talk about it more than once. It really can depend. We have seen things like a very simple, everybody's on the same page already kind of case could get through in 60 to 90 days. So that 200-day average includes, I was talking with a colleague this afternoon about a case that was filed in 2020. That's going to be a public hearing next month. That thing's old enough to walk. We don't really encourage that, but that's also a 500-acre rezoning. So the fact that it's going to be taking some time makes a lot of sense, right? So I would say probably closer to the 200-day mark.
Okay, the reason I was asking, and going back to the people that were asking about the traffic study, we're looking at probably 6 months plus there's a holiday break in there for staff and council. North Hills project is supposed to be completed in early spring of 2024. That will have a great impact on the traffic on 6 Forks. And you probably fall in that same window, and it's going to add to the complexity of the traffic, which hopefully they will take in light of the full impact on 6 Forks Road. So it looks like you're gonna fall within that same window. It's just something that I think you should keep in mind, because they're not gonna be independent. One affects the other. So any development along Six Forks is gonna be dependent on the scheduling and completeness for North Hills, and which has the greatest impact.
I reserve the thing that will affect Six Forks Road for the rest of my life, at least since I'm going to be 80, is the Six Forks Road corridor. And that'll be a construction project, it'll be a 9-year for the decade probably. And if they don't fix the stoplights in North Hills, they'll do no good whatsoever, because most of the congestion there is due to the stoplight. But the thing I'm gonna ask is, this property looks like it's very analogous to Camelot Drive, which goes behind the First Citizens Building, where the bank presumably owns the residence on the west side of the street and holding it off for future development. Whereas on the east side of the street, multi-million-dollar homes are going up. So it looks like it's sort of the developers are, we have the 6 quarter and higher buildings, but then that next block back is starting to see some development pressure. And what we do is going to have a big impact on, say, the people who are not like the church. If they want to raise money for their important needs. And if they're restricted, well, then they lose money, and it may not help anybody save money too. So it's a difficult situation.
There wasn't a question on that.
No.
Was there?
Well, I was asking if that area is sort of analogous to what we see at Camelot, if that's a fair question. If you're familiar with Camelot.
Camelot's right across from North Hills Mall. It runs
It's when you
from where the grocery store is behind Six Forks and up heading north.
connects the extension of St. Albans Street. Take St. Albans over and then cross to the stop.
Yeah, if you keep going, that's Camelot.
Kind of going like, right now, so I'm gonna say it's like that or not.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't, your reference is not resonating with me because I can't visualize it right now. Yeah. Sorry.
It's where the Harris Teeter is, North Hills.
Yeah, I understand that. I
And
just
just
get
go
my
at
head around that picture right now. I'm sorry. Yeah. I only think so. It's hard to know all the blocks. Yeah, there's like two contours rather than. My colleagues listened to me explain this really elaborate story today about this house next door to something that's in rezoning where my husband lived when I met him. I have a pretty deep extended experience of Raleigh, but I'm throwing like on camera, sorry. Other planning questions, I think the pastor does want to talk a little bit.
Thanks, Bynum.
Yeah, thank you.
We were nice.
I'm Luann Charlton. I'm the senior pastor at St. Mark's United Methodist Church, and this is Eric Wilkinson, a congregation member that has come here tonight that we can share with you. And we see another member of our church, Stan Sager, here, who is also a neighbor. So when I was in undergraduate school, I took a course called History of Christianity in America. And there was one test that determined 100% of our grade, and it had one question on it. And the question was, define the polity of the United Methodist Church. 100% of my grade rested on that. So I share that to say that it is a very confusing, it can be very confusing, very, very detailed. And we got our name Methodist because there is a method for doing absolutely everything. So there's lots of checks and balances. You've had incredible questions. We hear them. We honestly hear them. And what we're here tonight to tell you is that we are in the process of trying to make a decision about what we will do. As many churches that went through a pandemic understand, life is not what it was before that. And we have had to take a new look at every single thing that happens in our church and how we do ministry and who we are to the world. Everything has changed with that. So while we were going through that process, after we came back together after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, actually, a door opened for us that we never even dreamed would open. We never thought about it opening. And it was someone coming to us with an idea that you have this piece of land that is valuable. And you could rethink the way the church sits on this piece of property. And we could help you be able to have a church that would do everything that you can do now, but with in a different place on this piece of property. And it would take care of for us many aspects of why we find ourselves where we do during the pandemic. So I'll let Eric talk in details because he knows the details much better than me, but I will say this to you. We are in process with our denomination. The way it works is that every church, every local church is what we call it, which is what St. Mark's is, a local church, is part of a district, which is the capital district, which is part of a conference, which is the North Carolina Conference, which is part of a worldwide denomination, United Methodist. We have a book of discipline. We have to follow it step by step by step. We are in that process right now. There's several steps that have to be taken. If I were sitting in your place, and I am in my neighborhood, actually, another Raleigh neighborhood, but if I was sitting here tonight, I would want answers to when is this going to happen? When are you going to make a decision? We haven't had a church-wide vote yet. We haven't been given permission to even go there yet. So we are in a place of waiting also. So I just want to tell you that, and also share that what we really want to do is be very open. And when we can, give you the answers that we hope will be helpful.
Well, Bynum, thank you. I think you kind of hit it out of the park there with everything that's going on today. There has been a preliminary zoning meeting with the city, which was documented here. And that was followed up with a sketch plan review as a policy of that. And at that point, it's basically stopped because, as Luann said, we've not been able to have the church-wide vote yet. So that your analogy of being in gray, we're kind of there too. We have had church meetings. Some of you attended, I think, one of those, as trying to explain what things could be. There's been a fair amount of information out there. What we can say is the church has been there for we're getting ready to celebrate our 67th year at that location. And the church, if things were to move forward, the church definitely is part of that staying there. We really can't say a whole lot else other than that at this point, because we're trying to inform, we're just about through with informing the congregation. We follow the steps for when the vote can happen. The church council vote is upcoming, but the general congregational vote has to wait by process a fair amount of time after that. Any questions?
I guess I have a comment question. I live down the street and my son takes trombone lessons from a music teacher who uses her classroom. And that is fantastic. Like, she comes and then students from the neighborhood come and take lessons. So I think it's great that we are using your space, for people in the neighborhood to access, things that are not explicitly church related. I know there's some other, piano and books.
Well, that brings up a really good point, and we're glad that you're benefiting from that. If things were to proceed as currently planned, the church never closes. We renovated our church probably 10 years ago or so, and we had to move into the gym and continue to hold service there. So if it were to continue as it is now, the only part of the church that would be removed while construction was on would be the sanctuary. And we have another alternative means for doing it. So there would be a phased approach. The church would never stop worshiping. You would all be welcome to come and worship with us. We hope you would. And the Children's Center definitely stays active and it's never touched through that.
I mean, we believe from our, again, preliminary discussions and that our ability to serve the community in that area will grow exponentially with the way that we want to design things. And, you know, make it much more friendly for people to come in the community and use our building.
You all have a timeline that you're working towards when you would have a vote with your church membership?
And you know, that again, her question is, do we have a timeline? It would seem that we would have that, and I wish we could stand here and tell you that. Right now, we're in holding because tomorrow night we meet and the meeting tomorrow night is a meeting to decide if we're going to even think about one. So that's tomorrow night. But once that happens, then there's again other checks and balances over our head. So that what we don't know in this equation right now is when our North Carolina conference say to us, you know, we bless this, go forward. We do not know that. They know that there's an urgent need for us to, you know, have some answers. They are aware of that.
But speaking as a fellow Methodist who belongs to North Raleigh, what you're doing is selling off some basically surplus property
Yes.
to raise money to, and this property will go to a non-church purpose, but you'll have the money to repurpose and reinnovate your own church. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean,
Okay, so in a nutshell, there's about 4.5 acres in St. Mark's property currently. Perry Street is, it's one, well, it's, you can see there were two parcels on there before, it's just under an acre. If, as currently planned, all that would get mixed together and St. Mark's would end up with right at 2 acres of land. Because we would then give away part of the current 4801 property, then we would actually be the ones occupying portion of the Terry Street property.
and you know, I think it's real important to, you know, we mentioned we're 67 years old on June the 4th. So we've got a 67-year-old building. Not a day goes by that something does not break. And, you know, being totally honest, we have so much that needs to be fixed that because, again, of what has happened, mainly with the pandemic, but church at large. I mean, you know, most denominations are seeing, mainline denominations are seeing a drop in attendance and people that want to attend. So, but with what we have, the people are giving as fast and as much as they possibly can, and we cannot keep up. So the thought of being given or having this building that would not have the same degree of maintenance would be, it's unheard of, really.
Well, and Luann won't say this, but under her tutelage, we do have many new members coming in. So St. Mark's is a growing church. We want to make sure it continues to grow. So we serve Backpack Buddies. We have a children's center. Mission is our goal.
It is, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
St. Mark's is a special place to me. My kids went to preschool there. My wife out there during the pandemic. Question, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, that's fine. So you're not comfortable answering it. But given that the zoning, I guess the policy is so out of alignment with what's being proposed, would it be economically feasible for this to move forward if the developer would have to go within the zoning guidelines, just preschool, in other words, less dense, smaller development? Does the deal still make sense for the developer, or does it fall apart?
That's what the rezoning process is for.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is, does this only make sense for you and the developer if it's 12 stories, or does it still make
We
sense?
have never stated 12 stories. 12 stories came out of the preliminary zoning meeting about the City of Raleigh staff.
So the developer said.
We did not. I was in that meeting. That's the way that it came out. So we don't know what it is, but that's why we're saying there's a process to go through to determine exactly what you're saying.
The
we don't
said 6 or 8 or as much as 12 would like all of
So
them.
it's probably 8 from the way the zoning districts work in Raleigh. It's 3, 4, 5, 7, 12.
Okay.
So to accommodate 8, they would have to ask for 12.
Okay.
So what,
Why you say the 12 came out of the meeting?
yeah, but what's the actual, what's the proposal?
What's the dream?
Yeah, what is the proposal in the sketch, I guess?
Maybe I can help you at this point. Mike Lewis, the developer, was also invited to this meeting. He took the position that he did not want to come out and say anything while negotiations were still going on with the church, and the church was running through their process. So I think that's to come. Once I think your portion is squared away, and I expect it'll be a timely process. That's the next step probably, is then you're dealing with the developer. All those questions that you want answered, I think have to come from the developer. Because there's a couple of issues, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking about dividing the property a little differently too. So some of it will be the developer, some of it will be retained by the church
Sure.
and kind of recombine. Okay, so I think that's maybe some of the confusion that between the church and the developer, but the
Yeah.
developer chose not to get involved at this point.
Quick question, you said 6 to 8 or to 7, but if he says 6 to 8, then he's got to apply for 12. And if he gets 12, why would he get no 12? And you don't have to answer that. I'm really just thinking out loud. I mean, you're not the developer. I get
Well,
that.
Bynum won't tell you this, but if he decides to go 12,
Right.
as Bynum explained to you, it's a matter of what's zoning consistency and what's not within zoning consistency.
Right.
If he opts to go 12, his barrier gets higher. And that's why a lot of developers ask for 8. In Midtown, we prefer 7 or less, because
Right.
that's within what's would be nice to have within Midtown, and we have guidelines for that. So it just adds to a hurdle. If he asks for 8, yet they go to 12, it's not just his development gets changed to 12, it's the area around it also gets changed to 12. The future land use map. That's a separate argument. It's a different picture altogether. But the point is, you want to get something that's consistent with what's around it. And in this case, if a 12-story building would sit over 2-story buildings, 2-story homes, I think he's gonna have a tougher way to go. That's all. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us have heard this before. We went through this with North Hills. We're going through it now with a property below the belt line. It's just a matter of trying to follow what's consistent with where it's being proposed.
But I mean, most of North Hills currently is over 8, 10 stories, correct?
No,
That all border
no,
single story homes.
no.
The Advanced Auto Parts building is how tall?
Well, North Hills, let's take it 2 ways, I guess. The part you see on St. Albans was approved before the Midtown plan.
Okay.
So that's why you see the heights that you do. They were approved at that time by height. And nobody knew what was going to be coming at that point. And they were also happy that John Kane was developing the property.
Sure.
What you see across the road, though, with North Hills being renovated, is all after the Midtown plan. And that's where there are more things that get applied to that property than would have been applied before. I wish we could have made more of an impact, but that was 2016.
The building at the where the JCPenney was, how tall was that building?
Which one?
The new one that's going up right now.
Well, the tallest building right now is the hotel, and that's 365 feet tall, and we're 35 floors.
Okay.
And then the Bank of America and everything before that was 20-story.
Okay.
So,
You're talking about that building?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's in.
yeah,
Okay.
he can still build up to 20 some odd. 23 and a 26 is what's going to go up very shortly.
But to your point, I mean, to your point, I mean, that's across the street from single story homes and 1-story commercial.
Right,
And yeah, it all has to start
right.
somewhere.
But we don't have any say in that anymore, unfortunately.
No, I agree.
But you do have a say in everything coming forward.
Right.
The planning did have a step up.
Yeah.
And that was part of the compromises, is
Yeah.
that what was being built on the street had to be kept down. I don't remember 6, and then it steps up as it goes
Right.
back to the street. So that's what was done in the plan to address.
Right. And you see it on Lassiter Road in particular, because what Kane is building now, and you'll see everything is stepped back in stages from Lassiter.
Mhm.
And it was because of the homes he's building right across the street from.
Well, to your points, there is a rezoning process to go on. So is Mary Black still with us?
I don't know. She's not,
Because what we can say is,
I don't see her online. and she was
Mike Lewis
dropping
did
her.
meet with her. And she wants, understandably, as do Luann and I, we have to take a church vote to see if we're even going anywhere. Okay, we have to take care of our own house and congregation. If that is affirmative, then what she wanted to do was to chair a meeting to start the process with y'all, so we can show you exactly what it is at that point, because we don't even know right now. I mean, there's a roadmap out there, but there's a lot of specifics, because somebody said 12 stories. Well, you wouldn't build 12 stories if you can't afford it, but basically to the point that's there. So nobody started this thing saying, we got to do 12 stories. Okay, so that is part of the process. She wants to host that. I mean, she wants to chair that, and would I ask if St. Mark's would host it? And we said, well, of course. So this is not we're in the gray area, as Bynum was saying, and we're trying to get through facts, because facts are what everybody has to see and go with. We don't know today how tall this building is. I can tell you that for certain.
I think our main concern, and don't correct me if I'm wrong, is that, I think if we could all have a bake sale and, give y'all an exponential amount of money, we'd all be happier if y'all just stayed where you were and everything looked like it is. But if you choose to sell the property and help out everything you are, get back in the black, and then you're over on your side of the property, now you've released all control to the other piece of property to this guy. So that at that point, he's appeased you by, y'all got a great church, everybody's good over here, but he now owns the property and can do anything else with it. And at that point, y'all have him say, and the transfer of property's already happened. So if he decides to go with whatever proposed property, like if y'all say, if you sell a piece of property to him with the intent of 5 stories, once that property's gone, it's his property. He can build 12 stories if he gets zoned for 12 stories. So he can tell you, and we're really here, I think for y'all's best interest and our neighborhood's interest. It just seems, like I said, it seems too good to be true.
I'm
And
sorry,
it seems too good to be true. So,
we hear that every day.
yeah, and it just seems that, I think our concern is that he's telling that he'll, let you know, give you what you want to hear, get your building, get y'all squared away, and then you're gonna be good. But then at the end of the day, the property is now his and he can do whatever with it.
I understand your comment. I understand your comment. What I can say is there's no way these properties work without being designed and consort with each other, because they lean on each other.
Sure.
We're there. We don't want something to dwarf us, because we're still a church on, 6 Forks Road, and we're the small church of the 3. Somebody said here. We even took our steeple down when we had to repair the roof, okay, because it was a lot smaller than everybody else's. But I understand. I fully understand with what y'all seen in this area. I live in Raleigh. I lived here for a very, very long time.
Sure.
I can understand your concern. Those 2 projects have to lean on each other. And so it is not a draw a line in the sand and go for this person who is a community, has lived in Raleigh too. And we've worked together for 20 some years. He is a Raleigh resident. So he's not, he can speak for himself, but it's not somebody from out of town coming in here trying to go get 30 stories and, I want to build penthouse condos that are the tallest in town.
We have one of those down the street. It's lived here for a long time, and he's looking for 40 stories. So,
Yeah.
But
we also, I just enjoyed the Durham Bulls baseball game with one of my colleagues and friends that was in our wedding last week. Landscape architect by trade, from Ohio, moved here in somewhere around 1985. Sold his firm, works in a big firm now, and a lot of the young people said, tell me what it was like when you got here. You got here somewhere around 1985. He said 3 things that stuck with him. He said, I-40 didn't go to Chapel Hill, had to go to 54. His wife worked internationally, so he went to RDU a lot. You picked up her at the airport curb.
Yeah.
Okay, and downtown Raleigh had 4 restaurants, one of which was Scott Cooper's. But the barbecue, but nothing it does, barbecue, okay? That's not that long ago, okay? So, I mean, and those are some pretty major things. We all face road traffic now. We know what DOT's against. Or up against, and we can't build roads fast enough. We're in a thriving city, so we're all trying to work through that.
I think what Matt, the point Matt is trying to make here, 60 years in the community, you're trusted entity. We have no history of this developer. I mean, he's not here to speak for himself, but I know that doesn't really engender trust to be quite honest.
Well, to be fair, though, you have to understand, he can't be here because St. Mark's has not told him yet that we can go. Because we have to get our congregation to, he will be here through the rezoning process, but he would be out of order in our family if he were here tonight, because he doesn't have the authority to say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying, we have a history with the developer. I don't know who he is. I have no idea. I mean, maybe you can. If you will.
I will just throw out for you that your community has the benefit of all parties being open as far as communication goes. I'm independent. I mean, we were at just the Midtown CAC, but I had a conversation with the developer. No problem. He stated his case, I stated mine, and he was very open to answer questions. Luann was excellent in sending me position of the church. And I think you as a community, you're involved and you're involved early. I think you're making such strides ahead of what normally occurs. And I think all parties are willing to keep you informed.
And I think the other thing just to mention too, is a lot of us move from other areas of Raleigh to this particular area of Raleigh because it's so quiet and because it's so safe. We like the fact that our kids can walk to their friends' houses without having to worry about getting run over by a car. We like that my kids can walk the dogs around the street without having to worry about them. You know, we used to live on Pamlico Drive, and we moved because of Northwest, right? That very quickly, within a couple of years, turned from a very quiet street to a nightmare.
Yep.
And that's precisely what we don't want to happen. That's why we're so passionate. So, I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we engaged so early. It's because we care about our community.
Well, I would just say to you, our door is always open as far as the Midtown CAC is. That's what we used to do before we were kicked out by the city.
Yeah.
We used to review rezoning applications. We used to bring in parties so they could talk to the community. They could talk to the people involved. And it's going to continue that way. Even if it takes you a year, we'll still be here, hopefully. And you're welcome to keep coming back and just keep using us as your forum. As I said to you, it's discussion tonight, just to have all the parties involved. You heard from a city standpoint, from Bynum, very straightforward in terms of what's expected from the planning viewpoint.
Yep.
And I think you've laid out very well what's expected from the community. And we've got very good representation from the church, and they've laid out what they need to do. So I think guys are in good shape.
Yeah, very good.
Just to add on to that, as a council, I want to let you know, first of all, I love what's happening tonight because it got all the parties involved and I'm able to listen to it. Our job in council is to represent you. So when you have thoughts, whatever they are, starting now, I want you guys to email us and let us know so that we are in the loop. Mary Black has already offered to chair this conversation so that we're right there in the midst of it. We want to make sure that we get the best solution for everyone, and that's only going to come if you keep talking to us, keep telling us. We are showing that you have 3 counselors here tonight. We want to hear you. So this is what we want to see so that the best outcome comes out of this. And so I'm really, really happy and really proud of you guys for being here, staff, everybody. We all want what's best. And at the end of the day, when this comes to council, hopefully we've had the best discussion so that we can all support their growth, we can support your community, and that's the end goal. But council will be that final decision, so never hesitate to reach out and say, this is what I think and this is what I want. You know, that we are all here for that. I think I don't mean to speak for Mary, but I'm sure it can feel the same way. So please know that our door is always open.
Thank you.
I really appreciate what you're doing, and I think we need to remember that the congregation of St. Mark's are our neighbors. They have every bit as much stake in this neighborhood as you do. There are probably a lot more of them than there are people in this room. And their voices, and that church having a strong church is a very positive thing for our neighborhood. So I think we sometimes lose sight of what's going on right across the street from our own house and get very self-absorbed, but we need to really think that this is an overall good thing for our neighbors and our neighborhood and for all of us. I hope it'll work because being a Methodist, I know a lot of the stresses that a lot of the churches are going through. And I know that the churches use as much of their resources as they can to help not only their congregation, but a lot of other people in the community and in the state and in the world that need help. So we want to help St. Mark.
I see Mary is online too, so if we get to a stopping point, I'll cue Mary in.
Hey, I'll just add one other comment that there are churches all through the city that are having these kinds of conversations to try and find partnerships to continue to be focused on their mission, that are good neighbors that want to be in partnership with their neighbors. And so St. Mark's is in the midst of their process, but there are other churches throughout the city that are also trying to figure out how to deal with aging buildings and serve the community next door. So, this is a dance we're all doing all through the city.
Yeah, this is the beginning of what is to come for many, many churches.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, let's see if we can bring in Mary here. Mary, you still with us, Mary? Mary. Well, maybe Mary will chime in shortly. I think we're at the point of our agenda where we've actually got some time. We don't have much, but we do have some time. Want to just remind everybody about a few things, and I do appreciate all the people that were involved with any part of the St. Mark's redevelopment project for coming tonight. I think it was a healthy discussion. I hope you all got what you expected to get from it tonight, and I expect to hear more from you as we move along. Few other things, we put out a survey. I mailed it to our typical membership of 150 people or so. If anybody would like to contribute to the survey and like it mailed to them in addition to the people who've already received it, that would be fine. Make sure you signed in before you leave, and we do have food from Primo tonight that I should have probably told everybody in advance, but I see there's a lot of sandwiches there, so please, if you would like to take a couple with you when you go to leave, that would be fine. They are also looking for help, by the way, so if you have children, grandchildren, whatever, looking for a job, Primo Hoagie is a good place to go. The part of Philadelphia, for me, I support them probably too much. In terms of other matters, there's not much going on in Midtown. There is a project going on, Z4722, my infamous project. I spoke at council recently about it because they, very similar to your situation, they are asking for up to 12 stories because they can do that. They put a condition in that they would only build to 8 stories, but the area is zoned for a max of 5, and typically it's zoned for 4 or less. It's being built on top of businesses that are 2-story. It's being built on top of townhomes that are no more than 3-story. Very similar situation. And the developer there is the reverse of what you have tonight. The developer hasn't provided any detail about what he's going to build. It's supposed to be OX, which includes residential, but yet they've made no assurance of anything that they're going to provide, and they don't have to do residential. Staff has given them the outline of what they should be providing and has done the calculations for them, but developer has not done their part. thanks to Christina, that case was deferred and will be coming back in July. You might want to watch it because how that goes may be an indication in the future of the way your case is going to go as well. Very, very similar scenario.
So it went through the planning commission already and so.
Went to the planning commission, they passed it on 6-1, I think.
Without anything,
Was that?
it just kind of no.
Yeah,
detail
there's
at
a,
all.
the planning commission has a different objective and maybe one wants to address that, but. The planning commission only addresses whether it's consistent with policy or it's inconsistent with policy, and then it's up to them. And in their case, they consider a need for housing to overweigh most of the inconsistencies, so they passed it. But then it goes to council, and council fortunately has a broader spectrum of taking into consideration things like neighborhoods and inconsistencies and makes their own decision. So that's gonna come back in July. And I'm personally hoping that between now and July, we get the developer to come to the table and get a little more clarity of what's being asked for. He's taking the attitude he doesn't have to tell you, and he's not. So that's what I'm saying. You guys are in a good place. If you're moving forward, you're in a good place.
And where is this exactly?
This property sits where the multimodal bridge is gonna come over the belt line and then land between Barrett Drive and Waytown Drive. Thank you, Christina. And there'll be a traffic circle in there to distribute traffic either out to Barrett Drive or Six Forks, or down Waytown Drive. So, and to date, the public hasn't gotten involved. I'm a little surprised. Like I said, it's important that between now and July, make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Can I speak to that really quick?
Sure.
Just 'cause that's the one we just started on. All right, so Z47, so that's District E. So I spoke to the applicant back in January, they brought it up to me, and then they called me the day before the vote. And so I told them then, hey, I don't know anything, I don't understand, I'm going to defer this because I need to learn more. I think the community needs to learn more, what can be done. Because the multimodal bridge, their plot of land will go right over it. Their argument is half their land is taken up by this bridge that will be done in the future, but that's because it's gonna be 40 feet up, I think, that's what they want to justify the height, that increase from 5 to 8. And this is what I'm spending my time. I wanted a longer time. I could have deferred it for like 2 weeks, but I said, no, you're gonna be the last meeting, just so that I can learn more and see how that community engagement goes. Those neighborhood meetings are developer led. So I want to make sure that they're going out, talking, and that's our job as council. So all of these things are pieces of the pie, whether it's planning commission or neighborhood meeting, those are just pieces of the pie for the final decision. So if I don't see that I have all those pieces, then that's what causes my deferral of that, to say, hey, I'm not saying no, but I want to know more and I want to learn more. I want to know what we can do extra, going above and beyond what's required so that we bring the biggest community benefit, especially in that area, because it's on the other side of North Hills. And my response to them is, hey, we've seen what can happen. I've seen what can happen right across the street. And this is the first change in that area. So I'd like a broader understanding of what they own 14 parcels within that small area. And so I'm like, if you own 14 parcels, you got some sort of like write it on a tax on that. Tell me what it is so that I have an understanding of what your goal is. And so that's where we are with that. So that's why I deferred it to July 5th so that I can learn some more. And I will keep you updated as I have more information.
And that is within Midtown. That's that part below the belt line that we pick up.
Right there, computer there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that piece of property is, from a stormwater point of view, to me, is very critical. If it's not handled right, it's going to add to the flood properties that are further downstream. So we'd like to have everybody talking. So, as far as tonight's meeting and our agenda, I think we've pretty well wrapped up. Those of you that have joined us for the first time, I encourage you to keep coming. We try to keep the agenda for what the community asks for, basically. I'm still trying to get the budget people here. I think there are a lot of questions relative to the budget. Not that we have an impact on what they're going to pass. It's too late for that. And their community engagement is scheduled for later in the year, but hopefully we'll see them in June. And a special thank you to Bynum and Sarah for coming out and answering the planning questions that you guys had. And thank you for the representation from the church. Really appreciate your being here. And let's see, who did I overlook? Anybody I overlook? Christina, of course, for being here. She used to be our host. We have kind of relieved her of that responsibility, but she still continues to come and be a part of our group. Let's see, anybody else? Holly and Matt for taking the minutes, even though they're not official. They're doing a great job. Special thanks to Primo Hoagies back there. Special thanks to Ted, who runs the technical part of our program in the background here.
It's already been very projected to set up over there.
That's all right. We got one more shot. We got one more shot at trying to get this. Maybe you're right. We are Thursday. Yeah. Well, I didn't, the city told me we had to ask for it. I didn't realize it was here. But-
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, and Linda, you want to throw anything out before we close up?
Thank you for bearing with us with the technical difficulties. We had a fire alarm going off as I got here to unlock the building. So as we got that fixed, that set off the Wi-Fi. So
Yeah.
that thank you for bearing with us. Thank you to the online folks that bared with us through that. But for Parks and Recreation right now, really just gearing up for summer camp. So we are in the final stages of hiring. I know there are some sites that are still really trying to get their last few folks on payroll and hired. I've got 2 interviews tomorrow to hopefully fill out the last 2 summer camp positions. So fingers crossed those go well. But if you know of anybody that's still looking for summer work, please send them our way. We do still have multiple sites that are looking for staff. And we are basically a week to 2 weeks out from training. So.
And we are looking for a caretaker for Eastgate Park.
This is one of the positions that we're trying to fill. But until we fill that, y'all get to see me every month. So it's kind of a win-win either way. So.
Oh, and I did forget Walter too. Walter helped us with the audio tonight as well.
And Walter is also helps us figure out stuff within the park. Wait, it's not Walter. Yeah, a lot of y'all report stuff when I've got stuff. When we've got stuff in the park. So thank you all to everybody that sends me emails when we've got stuff going on in the park. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Bynum, don't walk off with my clicker. Good night, everyone.